Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of No Niche Zone, the podcast about everything. I'm your host, Priscilla Davies, and welcome back to another episode. I just said that, but it felt right in that moment. It just felt right. I hope everybody's doing well. How was your week off? My week off was good, I think. Life is funny. Life has been lifing lately. I actually should be on a flight right now. Yeah, out of the country, vamoosing, leaving America. But, life had other plans. So instead of traveling, I'm here with you guys. And honestly, this is a great runner-up. This really is a great runner-up. With that being said, let's get into the show, shall we? Folks, have you heard of this new phenomenon called gray divorce? Have you guys heard of gray divorce? Gray divorce is divorce after 50 following a long-term marriage. And right now in the United States, gray divorce is on the rise, folks. It is on the rise. People 50 and older who have been married for a while, 20, 30, 40, sometimes more years they've been together, and now they're getting divorced. And this has been such a thing that they've coined a term called gray divorce to describe it. So there was a study in 2022 that looked at historical trends in gray divorce and found that the divorce rates among middle-aged and older adults have increased since 1970. Gray divorce was relatively uncommon in 1970 and grew only modestly in 1990. In 1990, 8.7% of marriages among people over age 50 ended in divorce. Only 8.7. By 2019, that number had grown to 36%, folks. 36%. I mean, that's a quadruple. That means in 30 years, the divorce rate amongst people 50 and older leaving long-term marriages essentially more than quadrupled. I mean, that is astonishing. That is stunning. Researchers also noted that people over the age of 65 are the only group with growing divorce rates. So not only is it bad, y'all, but it's getting worse. They are the only age group that their divorce rates are getting higher. As a sidebar, the divorce rates among adults in their 20s and 30s has actually declined in recent years. And just so you know, guess which generation has the lowest divorce rates? Take a wild guess. I'll give you a hint. It's known as the screw-up generation, the avocado toast generation, the participation trophy generation. Yeah, I'm talking about millennials, y'all. Millennials, we have the lowest divorce rates. Now, I know what you're saying. Maybe it's because we also have the lowest marriage rates. I don't know. I don't make up the rules. I don't make the rules, okay? But I think it's funny that we have lower divorce rates than our parents. And like I said, that number is getting worse. And another little fun factoid, baby boomers who make up the bulk of gray divorces, right? Because most baby boomers are the people who are over 50. Yes, there's a small group of Gen Xers in there, because I know y'all Gen Xers gonna complain that you're getting overlooked. We know you're in there too. But baby boomers are also part of this. And baby boomers specifically have the highest divorce rate, period, amongst all the generations. Baby boomers have the highest divorce rate. Ain't that some shit? The motherfuckers who are always lecturing everybody. Always trying to tell people how to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, you know what, Beverly and Charles? Maybe you should start taking some of our advice, especially as millennials with the lowest divorce rates. Ew. was so surprised to hear that. Baby boomers have the highest divorce rate. That is wild if you really think about it. That is wild. Another little fun factoid, the divorce rate for Gen Z, ages 15 to 24, obviously, hopefully not the 15-year-olds, has decreased by roughly 40%. So everybody seems to be getting divorced less. And boomers are getting divorced more. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons for gray divorce, why this phenomenon is happening. And, let's get into it. So one of the first factors in gray divorce is empty nest syndrome. Empty nest syndrome, folks. Okay. Now, we all know empty nest syndrome. This is when the kids leave the house. Now it's you and your partner. You've been so distracted for 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years, depending on the age gap between your kids. You've been so distracted for decades taking care of these kids, right? That you haven't had the time to deal with the dysfunction in your actual marriage. Maybe you didn't even notice it. Most people do, though. Let's keep it real. Most people be like, oh, I'm just going to hold on for the kids. But maybe you didn't even notice it, or maybe you've been holding on for the kids. And as soon as those kids graduate, and as soon as that little baby hits the big 1-8, you're like ready to go. So this is one of the main reasons for gray divorce. Empty nest. Now that you're not distracted by the million bazillion tasks that it takes, daily, hourly, minutely tasks that it takes to take care of your children, now you can see that your marriage is probably shit, and the person you're married to, you're like, oh damn, I'm pretty sure I hate your guts. Another major factor in gray divorce is infidelity, y'all. Cheating. Now, here's the thing. I feel like, I have a sneaking suspicion. It didn't say this in the research that I did, but I have a sneaking suspicion, y'all, that in those couples, those gray divorce couples where cheating was cited as the reason for the divorce, I bet you that a lot, if not most of those cheating marriages, I guarantee you that the partner who was cheating, most likely the man, let's keep it real, I guarantee you the partner who was cheating probably was cheating throughout the whole entire goddamn marriage. Okay? I bet you, and that other partner just put up with it. Put up with it year after year, decade after decade, and then they finally said, you know what, Earl? Go on and get your funky butt with your secret family across town that's not so secret. Get the hell up out of my house. I want a gray divorce. I'm pretty sure that's probably how a lot of those gray divorces over infidelity are going down. Another cause, health problems, y'all. See, now this is a major one because those people, a lot of people know that whenever there is a sickness in a marriage, a lot of times statistically, the husband will leave the mother, will leave the wife, okay, when she gets sick. This is a known phenomenon in the medical industry, in the healthcare industry. You will have nurses and doctors prepping women when they get major illnesses like, baby girl, I'm gonna touch your hand when I say this, but based on statistics, it is likely that your partner, your husband, is going to leave you high and dry. Because let's remember, in sickness and health is only really for the wife, right? It's only really for the caretaker because that's what the wife's role is, right? The wife is, we've talked about this on this podcast. It's like when you wake up and you understand like the con job that is the marriage and the con job that it is, making sure that women get married and sucking them into marriage and dangling love over their heads so that they can turn around and self-sacrifice themselves in order to take care of a grown-ass adult, a man baby, a king baby, as my mutual on TikTok, Mel Hamlet, calls them. So, of course, when the wife gets sick, The husband is like, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for a wife. And according to the description of wife that I have, she's supposed to be taking care of me. I'm not supposed to take care of her. And that's why a lot of these dudes leave. And so as women get older, right, these gray divorces, as they get older and they start, having health issues, suddenly that husband is like, I'm out of here. I'm out this bitch. I don't want to deal with this. So that's another major contributing factor to these gray divorces. People being abandoned when they get sick, usually the women. Okay. Of course, there's things like growing apart, and again, I think that growing apart is exacerbated by the fact that, of these empty nest syndromes. Like once those kids are gone, you no longer are distracted and you can see like, we are not the same people that we were 20, 30, 40 years ago when we first met. And it makes sense, right? It's like, yeah, it's been decades. A lot can happen in decades and people can change quite a bit in decades. So yeah, after those kids are gone or better yet, after retirement, that's another aspect. After you're retired, now you were a stay-at-home mom. Hubby was out there working. Now he's retired. Now he's in the house all day. And you like, you know what? Who is this person? Because I've changed so much in the last 20, 30, 40 years, and this person is still operating on the same level that they were, or they're doing something completely different themselves. So growing apart is another reason. And these last two reasons, to me, I feel like are the most important reasons why we're seeing this trend of gray divorce happening and growing in the new millennium. And that is changing expectations and societal changes. So let's talk about changing expectations. It's only recently that happiness really was a factor in relationships and like staying together. Now happiness is a factor. You can tell somebody, why did you get divorced? And you can you can tell them because I wasn't happy. And people will be like, okay. Back in the day, if you told someone that you got a divorce because you weren't happy, they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because how you felt didn't matter. It was more about the utilitarian nature of the relationship. It was more about what does it provide for you? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a father or a partner for a mother for your child? Is your partner going to work? Is your partner, doing their job at home? Like that was the criteria. And if those things were checked, if those boxes were checked, then nobody gave a damn if you were happy. You were happy just because you had a man who was going to work every day. Okay? But societal expectations have happened when it comes to marriage. And people expect love to be a part of it. People expect happiness to be a part of it. And happiness and unhappiness is a valid reason for leaving a relationship now. Whereas before, they would tell you to suck it up, Bookie. They would be like, who cares if you're happy? Does he provide? Does he beat you? You should just be happy he doesn't beat you. And the last one, societal changes. Now, this is another major factor in why we're seeing such a growth in divorce amongst these gray 50 and older couples. Gray divorce, right? Societal changes, right? Back in the day, it was expected that you were going to get married, you were going to have kids, and you were going to stick it out to that marriage, right? What happened if you got divorced, especially as a woman? You were ostracized, right? You were isolated. People labeled you and judged you, and you were, pushed to the outskirts. You were labeled a spinster, which ironically, do you know the roots of the word spinster? Do you know what it really meant originally? Spinster originally meant a woman who was so good at spinning wool or spinning, cotton, I don't know, spinning thread, that she was financially independent. So originally a spinster was I don't want to say it was a good thing, but it was describing a phenomenon of a woman who was so good at what she did that she could be financially independent. She didn't need a man. She ain't need a man. And what happened? Popular culture took that term and spun it and twisted it. And now it has a negative connotation. You're a spinster. And spinsters always trip me out because they were so demonized, right? In literature, in movies, in media, in society, right? They were so demonized. And it was like one day, when I started understanding like I said, the con job that is marriage, when I started understanding the hustle that women have been hustled by, the spell of love, the love spell. Come on, honey. When I started realizing that, it was like, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. The spinsters, the joke was on us, not the spinsters. The joke was on us. They were out here living their best lives. They didn't have no man telling them what they could do, where they could go, what they could wear. No man beating on them. No man cheating on them. No man emotionally neglecting them. No man emotionally and verbally and emotionally abusing them mentally. They could take care of themselves. They were independent. They owned their own shit. INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means? She got her own house. She got her own car, 2 jobs, work hard. She a bad broad. Come on. And that's exactly what these spinsters were. They were the original INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means? Look up spinster, y'all. We got bamboozled. All right. And I think that's just such an interesting thing. But back in the day, if you were a single woman over a certain age, you were looked down upon. You were shunned by society. And that was a major, blow that you had to accept if you decided that you did not want to settle down with a man. You had to accept being ostracized by society. And that can sometimes be the difference between life and death for people. And now society has changed. It is not expected for women to get married as soon as they freaking graduate from high school. It is not expected that you get married if you're 25 and you're not married, you're you're a spinster, it's too late. No, people are getting married later, right? People are getting married later in life. Also, the expectations that you have to stay in an abusive marriage. You have to stay in a bad marriage or in a marriage that just makes you plain unhappy. Unhappiness is enough for you to say, I don't want it anymore. And you won't be ostracized and judged for it. And these older people, especially older women, because let's be real, it is women who overwhelmingly initiate divorce. I think it's something like 70% of divorces in this country are initiated by women. So it is typically women who are sitting here who are no longer worried that they're going to be ostracized and have to deal with the negative social consequences of being single or being a divorcee. A divorcee. Oh my God. Remember the scandal of divorcees? I mean, a whole king had to abdicate his throne because he wanted to marry a divorcee. And that was just so scandalous in the 1930s. Or 40s. I think it was 30s or 40s. Isn't that something? Ain't that some shit? So societal standards have changed. We know now that it's not a one size fits all approach to everything. Everybody doesn't have to get married. Everybody doesn't have to have kids. It's not required. Also, getting married later in life. That's another aspect of the societal change. Getting married later in life. Okay? Like the later you're getting married, the more you know yourself, the stronger of a foundation you have as an individual. So the stronger of a foundation you as a couple will have. Right? So yeah, that's another aspect of this. Another aspect that I skipped was financial issues and infidelity. That's another thing that great divorcees are dealing with a lot too when it comes to retirement. You done been with this motherfucker for how many years? 20, 30 years. And now you're ready to retire and you find out this fool got a whole secret account. You find out while you're trying to put all your shit together to get your retirement funds together that this motherfucker has been siphoning money and stealing money from you. You find out that you guys are just not on the same page when it comes to retirement. And so that's another major factor in gray divorce, guys. Financial issues and financial infidelity. Having secret accounts on your partners and stuff. So yeah, this has been, this has been such an interesting thing that's been going on. And one of the things that I love about gray divorce is if you really think about it, like I said, 70% of divorces in this country are initiated by women. They are initiated by women, y'all. So this really is a movement of older women saying enough is enough. This is really a movement of our grandmas finally saying that they are sick of grandpa's shit. This is a movement of women, older women standing 10 toes down and saying, no mas. And I love that. I love to see our older queens out here like standing up for themselves. And I posted about this on TikTok. And I had some people comment, some older women comment, and they said, they were like, we're watching you young girls. One woman said that, it was her daughter that convinced her to leave her husband, her own daughter's daddy. It was her daughter, her younger daughter. And that's I think it's so beautiful to see these older women who essentially were pressured into marriage, because a lot of them were back in the day, right? They were pressured into marriage, got to keep up with the Joneses, don't want to be that old 26-year-old spinster, And so it's nice to see that these women are reclaiming their power and reclaiming their goddamn time. Now, my question is, what's going to happen to the poor podcast bros? Have you checked in on your podcast bro? Because this information is a major blow to those podcast bros out there who are always talking about how come women today aren't like our grandmas were? What, podcast bros? Are you okay? Because I know y'all must be struggling hearing about this statistic and hearing about the fact that your grandmas are dumping your granddaddies. That's what they doing. Now that it's safe for them, culturally safe for them to do it, they're running. We talked about this on the podcast here when I said that your granddaddy ruined your grandmama's life. And you're sitting here holding her up on a pedestal as if she's something to aspire to when she wants out. And she's just trapped. Because she got married when she was 17 and your granddaddy was 32. Yeah, we talked about that on this podcast. And when I posted about it, I had so many dudes in the comments being like, not my grandmama. Not my that's just you. My grandparents are happy. Are they? So they were in my comments talking about not me, And of course, all the women in the comments are like, my grandma told me to stay away from men. My grandmama told me how bad men went for the time I was right? So I ended up actually seeing this clip of this older woman who was sharing her story about, her very romantic proposal. And it went a little something like this. And, she was saying it in a joking manner, but she basically said that her first husband told her that you need to marry me or I'm going to kill you. That was her proposal. We need to get married or I'm going to kill you. That was the romantic proposal. And, I posted that. And again, oh, well, that's just one. It's like, y'all, you don't want to accept the truth. And now you don't have to accept the truth because the proof is in the pudding. Okay. They took a little bit longer to get here because in their age bracket, in their age group, they had to deal with all of the societal issues, right? They were distracted by the kids, all this stuff. But now Now that society is okay with divorced women, et cetera, you're gonna see more and more grandmas and mamas out there who have been married for 20, 30, 40 years calling it freaking quits. Because the truth is, they have probably been suffering in this marriage probably since day one. Since day one. I say that as someone who is the child of a gray divorced couple. My parents were married for 30 years and then they got divorced, initiated by my mama. I mean, it just lines up with the statistics. And you know what? One of the things my mom said after she got divorced, she was like, I knew I wanted a divorce after the first year. And she stayed for 29 years more, popped out 2 more kids to boot after my brother. Okay? And she stayed for 29 more years. And she would tell me the stories about how anytime that she had enough, she would go to her mom, to her elders, her aunts, and you know, go and complain and ask for help. And they would tell her, do you iron his shirts? Maybe you need to iron his shirts more in the morning. Maybe you need to make sure you cook his right meals. And this is the community. The community didn't tell her, oh, you're not happy? Leave that motherfucker. Because that's what we tell you today. That's what we would tell you today. You're not happy? Leave him. He's cheating on you? Leave him. He's not pulling his weight? Leave him. Because the truth of the matter is, it is easier to do it on your own. And that applies even to single mothers. And quite frankly, especially to single mothers. There are statistics out there where surveys where single mothers, as long as they are financially okay, they are happier than married mothers on average, y'all. You talk to any single mother out there, she will tell you that it's easier to take care of her kids and take care of her home as a single mother than it was when she had that king baby in her house. When she had to take care of that extra child who was actually a full-grown adult and probably more needy than her actual children. So women are saying, why am I putting myself through this? Why? And as younger people, we're like, guess what? You don't have to. And it's finally trickled up, if you will, to the older community, to our Gen Xers, our older Gen Xers and our boomers, the gray divorce. I feel like we're seeing the beginning of a shift in marriage, in society. I feel like we're seeing a major shift. Not just in the fact, not just in like, you know, how, like, not just in like how marriages are ending, but in how marriages are beginning. It's starting with how things are beginning. Like I said, I think that's one of the major contributing factors as to why millennials have such low divorce rates, is because we also have low marriage rates, which basically says that, you know, you are sitting here holding out. Since we have such low marriage rates, if you're marrying somebody, it's because you really want to. You don't feel forced. You don't feel like you have to. You're doing because you really want to. And people are waiting longer to get married. So yeah, I think that we're watching the beginning of a huge shift in marriage. I feel like 20 years from now, we probably won't even, the numbers of marriage are going to be so low. People, I think, are going to stop getting married in the numbers that they used to. And I think that, you know, we're going to see a lot of these older relationships start to end. Gray divorce. I'm telling you. So what do you guys think about this phenomenon of gray divorce? Are you happy for grandma and mom? Do you think they should try to work it out? Do you think that this trend is going to change, or is it going to continue to get worse? Is it going to continue to rise? Let me know. Let me know what you think. All right, guys, let's move on. We're going to do a little doc deep dive. This is like going to be kind of a mini doc deep dive. Maybe not a mini. I don't know. I say mini and you know me. I'm going to be yabbering and jabbering. Have you guys watched the Menendez Brothers documentary on Netflix? You know, the Menendez Brothers have popped up in the media recently. You know, Ryan Murphy did that TV show called Monsters about them, which I did not watch. I I don't know. After hearing about some of the things in it, I'm just like, I don't know. I couldn't do it. But I did watch the documentary because, this happened. I was, a little ass kid when this happened. So I only remember this like peripherally, hearing the name on the TV, hearing, seeing the headlines on magazines when I'm standing in line at the grocery with my mom, I don't really, I didn't really know the ins and outs and the nitty gritty of this case. So I watched the documentary, and I want to talk about the documentary. I want to talk about the case, and I want to talk about some of the things that came up that just, I was like, interesting. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Menendez case, this is what you learn from the trial. Basically, on August 20th, 1989, okay, Beverly Hills PD gets a phone call from one of the Menendez brothers, who basically tells him that me and my brother, Eric and Lyle Menendez, we were out at the movies. And when we came back from the movies, we came home and we found our parents shot to death in the TV room or in the den. Okay. And so that is the moment that this whole entire story and case begins. Although really it begins a lot earlier than that, but that's where it begins when it comes to the public. All right. Now, Eric and Lyle Menendez were 18 and I believe 22 at the time, or 20 at the time, early 20s, but the youngest one was 18. And they were the sons of Jose and Kitty Menendez. Jose Menendez was a not huge, but a very successful and, huge depending on what market you're talking about, but very successful music producer. He was I guess you could call it mastermind behind the hugely popular Latino group Menudo, which was around from like the 80s and the 90s. Okay. And so he was a record exec in Beverly Hills. They lived in Beverly Hills. These were some rich ass people. Okay. And so when this went down, Eric and Lyle weren't even considered suspects. This is Beverly Hills, baby, okay? They not gonna be pointing no fingers at no rich ass kids and children of, Hollywood moguls. That ain't gonna happen, right? So they weren't even considered a suspect. So they went on about their lives. They said that they believed it was a mafia hit, okay? And they went on about their lives. And during the few months after, they were spotted spending a lot of money, okay? They were out in the streets buying a lot of stuff. They bought a Ferrari or something, and they were, sleeping in expensive hotels, et cetera, et cetera. And so, this kind of like turned the public tide against them. And suddenly, people started questioning, like, wait a minute, these boys came home and discovered their parents dead, and now they're out here like spending money and seemingly from the outside looking in, having a grand old time. Now, to me, I'm like, they're rich kids. Rich kids are always spending money. Like, is a Ferrari, I don't know if a Ferrari is the same thing to a rich kid as it is to the rest of us. You know what I mean? Like, to you, and I don't know. I'm not saying it's whatever. I'm just saying that to me, I'm like, I need more. Give me more. But anyway, so the tide turned and they started being looked at as potential suspects. Long story short, Beverly Hills PD finally does question them, and they fold immediately and they admit to the crime of having murdered their parents. Okay. And thus begins the infamous Menendez Brothers trial. They were actually in prison for quite a few years. It was about 3 years until the trial started, which is something else. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying that they're innocent by any means. I'm just saying, like, if you're innocent, right, and you go to jail and you have to wait years for your trial to prove that you're innocent, it's just so, the judicial system is just so effed up in this country. But needless to say, they were in prison or jail for a few years. And then finally in, I believe, 1993, the Menendez trial began. Okay. The infamous Menendez trial began. And this is where we get these, harrowing details about the Menendez brothers' lives, according to them. This is where they start to tell their story. And this is where we get those clips, those infamous clips that were circulated all throughout the media, because the judge in this case allowed cameras in the courtroom. Okay. High profile case. He allowed cameras. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But it happened. And so a lot of these clips of the brothers telling their story, clips of family members corroborating some of their stories circulated, and affected the public opinion. And this is where, Lyle and Eric tell us the story of what they say was essentially the hell that they were living in growing up in that house. That their father, Jose Menendez, was physically abusive, verbally abusive, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abusive. And that he was molesting them from the time that they were 6 years old. And the youngest brother, Eric, from 6 until 18 years old. Jesus Christ. Until this event. I mean, it's just... this is what they said, allegedly, according to them. Of course, we couldn't corroborate this, but this is what they said. However, as y'all know, I always believe victims, period, point blank, okay? So not only do we get these harrowing details about how abusive their father was, we also get some corroboration from some of their family members. Their uncle came out and spoke about how he witnessed physical abuse. He witnessed Jose Menendez punch little Eric Menendez in the stomach when he was 5 years old. And when the attorney asked him, was it a hard punch? He's like, it was a hard punch. It was a hard punch. He punched this little boy. And if you guys don't know, but Jose Menendez was a big man. That man was like 6'2". Okay. And not a skinny dude. And he recounts that and says that it was such a hard, and that he then yokes the kid up and drags him out of the room. And he followed him, the uncle, and confronted him. And that Jose told him, I'm going to raise my kids the way I want to raise my kids. And he was like, if you don't like that, leave. And what did the uncle do? He left. I mean, family dynamics. We don't have time to go into the detail of that, but family dynamics, right? And so other people came out, some of their cousins came out and corroborated that when they were young, that Eric and Lyle had shared with them, had confided in them about the abuse that they were experiencing, including the sexual abuse, okay? And so we have all of this go down during the trial. And we also, during the trial, learn of the motive according to Eric and Lyle. We learn what they said the motive was. And according to them, essentially, the youngest brother, Eric, was planning, he had just graduated from high school. He was planning on going to Stanford. In his mind, he's like, I'm going to Stanford. I'm getting the hell out of here and I'm getting away from this. But Jose, his father, said, no, you are not going to Stanford. You are instead going to stay home in this house where he's saying that he's being abused. You're going to stay home and go to UCLA. And that was the fateful event that triggered everything, according to the boys. So what happens? Eric loses his fucking shit. Because in his mind, he's like, I'm fucked. I'm trapped. How the fuck am I going to get out of here? And so he does the one thing that his father told him never to do. He went and he told his older brother, Lyle, that his father had been molesting him for over a decade. He told his brother. And when he told his brother Lyle, that sparked a chain of events. Lyle went home and confronted the dad, and that led to blowout arguments. One blowout argument in which their mother, Kitty, literally told them, what do you think, I'm stupid? Letting them know that she knew all along. So the illusion that their mother was clueless was shattered in this time frame when they're arguing, getting into these big blowout fights with their parents. Okay. And so now they know, now they're in this position, everything is going down, right? And on this one particular day, they're having this blowout argument, and the father sends Eric up to his room and then closes the door of the den, which the brother said was odd. And that triggered Lyle, the eldest brother, to run up to his brother's room and say, it's time. And what does he mean by it's time? He goes He and his brother had previously purchased shotguns because they were scared that their parents were going to kill them. And I know, most people will be like, oh, come on, that's crazy. What do you mean you were scared your parents were going to? If these boys are telling the truth, and their father was abusing them the way that they said, and if their family members who were corroborating them were telling the truth, then y'all need to understand abuse is a whole nother level. And let's not forget, Jose Menendez is a Beverly Hills big time Hollywood music exec. What do we know is going on with a current big time Hollywood music exec? These motherfuckers are not like us, y'all. They're not like us, okay? So he says that he thought that his dad was going to kill him. And this isn't just because they thought that. The father told them multiple times over their life that he would kill them if they ever told anybody about the abuse. So they run upstairs, grab the guns, come downstairs, and we know how that ends, right? And that is the motive that we get in the trial. All right. And so this was being televised. And while it was being televised, that means that everybody in the world could see what was going on. Everybody in the country could see what was going on. So there was a lot of public opinion about the case. And you would see people literally making fun of these boys, literally making fun of them, crying on the stand about their abuse that they endured at the hands of their father. You literally had people making jokes, nighttime, hosts, night show hosts making jokes, comedians making jokes about these brothers, regular TV hosts making, it was really, I remember this at the time as a little kid, seeing everybody just be so dismissive of these little boys, so dismissive of them, right? And so what happens? The trial goes to the jury. And the jury deliberates for a month. They cannot come to a consensus. Okay. And this was one of the most interesting parts of the documentary for me, because this was a fact that I didn't know. And I feel like nobody's really talked about in the media at all. And that's the fact that actually, you know what? I'm going to let the juror from the documentary speak on it and speak for herself. Okay. This is what the juror two of the jurors actually are in this clip, who was in the first trial. This is what she had to say.
My worst fear came to pass when we made the mistake of taking a show of hands. All of the men raised their hands in favor of first-degree murder, and none of the women raised their hands. So I knew that we had a battle on our hands, a battle of the sexes.
The men instantly voted for murder.
I think the men had a really hard time accepting the fact that a young man could possibly be abused by his father. And the women were more empathetic in terms of understanding issues of abuse.
It was very emotional for me to think that the child had been raised the way that Eric had been raised and handled and treated that way, and decided his only way of having a better life was to have one without a parents in it.
Those were two of the female jurors from the first Menendez trial. Did you hear what they said? They said that the vote was split by gender. That all of the men wanted to convict them of first-degree murder, and all of the women wanted to convict them of manslaughter. You find that out later in the documentary. I mean, when they say that the patriarchy hurts men too, if this isn't a prime example, honey. Did you hear what she said? She said that she felt like a lot of the men could not understand, they could not fathom, could not believe that a boy could be abused sexually. I talked about this on my TikTok, and someone in my comments said, also, a lot of men will think that it is the boy's fault, that the boy was weak. That's that patriarchy, baby. That's that patriarchal programming, honey. And who could empathize with the boys who had been abused? The women. The women. The vote on both of the juries, because it was both of them were being tried separately, although they were in the same. I didn't understand that, but there was two separate juries, two separate attorneys. Both juries were split amongst gender lines. Ain't that some shit? It begs the question, if the jury was all women, or if the juries were mostly women, would the boys have gotten what ended up happening? Which, by the way, this trial ended in a mistrial because they could not, after 1 month of deliberation, they could not come to a consensus. The patriarchy hurts men too, because the patriarchy creates these beliefs that little boys can't be sexually abused. The patriarchy creates these beliefs that little boys are weak if it happens to them. It makes people in general, but especially men, believe these. When I heard that, I was like, God damn, the patriarchy strikes again. And I think it's so interesting that I don't remember ever hearing about this fact anywhere, even in the resurgence of interest in this case today. Nobody's talking about that fact. Also, I'm sure another factor was some of those men on the jury could empathize and identify with an abuser. I wonder why. And they're thinking, well, we can't just go around killing abusers all willy-nilly, can we? The patriarchy strikes again. This is what I mean when I say we need to revamp the justice system. This is what I mean when I say we need to have more women involved in the justice system, in the leadership positions in the justice system. This is what I mean when I say that we need to have domestic violence, sexual assault, abuse, experts, and training for all officers of the court. The judges all need sexual abuse awareness training. They need domestic violence training. The attorneys, the prosecutors, the DAs. We're going to talk about this prosecutor, honey. The DAs, they need that training. The jury needs that training. If you're doing a sexual assault case, it should just be a part of the sexual assault case that you require training. Before anything starts, you get a little 1 hour, 2 hour, 4, whatever it takes, a 1-day training on sexual assault and the nuances of domestic violence so that you can understand it and apply the law fairly. Okay? Anybody dealing with domestic violence cases and sexual assault cases need to be trained by experts in the field. And there should be an expert in the field in the freaking courtroom to be able to say, objection, Your Honor. Asking a client what they were wearing the night of a rape is not okay. Asking somebody, an abuse victim, why they didn't leave is not okay. And we're going to explain to you why. So we can stop using these patriarchal tropes against women and against victims. The idea that boys can't be molested. Are you kidding me? That was just such a painful moment for me to watch because I was like, God damn, that is so effed up. So there was a mistrial. And this was a huge blow to the DA's office in Los Angeles, right? Because remember, this was televised. This was a national case that everybody was watching. So this was a huge blow. So what does the district attorney, who, by the way, was the father of Gil Garcetti, who was one of our more recent district attorneys, just a little side note, what did he do? He turned around and said immediately that he was going to retry the case, and that they did. They retried the case. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Between the first Menendez trial and the second Menendez trial was the OJ trial. Same office, same DA's office, same judge. Judge, what was his name? Stanley Weisberg. Okay? And we all know what happened in the OJ trial. Another televised national trial. They lost, right? So a mistrial is not a loss, but to the prosecutor's office, that is a loss to them, right? They take that as a loss. So in their minds, they lost the Menendez brother trial. They lost the OJ trial, all on national TV. So literally the verdict of the OJ trial came right before the second Menendez trial started. So, one can assume that they probably had a little bit of a vendetta that they were trying to handle, a little bit of a vendetta that they were trying to handle. Okay? One can assume, right? And so the same Judge Stanley Weisberg in the second trial didn't allow cameras, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But he also limited testimony about the sexual abuse. He basically said, y'all can't talk about the sexual abuse, when that is literally the crux of their whole entire defense. He said, y'all can't talk about the sexual abuse, and he took manslaughter off the table for the mother. So in the trial for the mother, for the charges with the mother, they weren't even allowed to choose manslaughter anymore. He took that shit off. See, this is the shit they don't tell you in the headlines. This is the stuff they don't tell you when, like they said, when the camera wasn't in there, right? This is the stuff they don't tell you. So the jurors pretty much, heard no testimony about the sexual abuse. They were not allowed to choose manslaughter. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And they convicted in no time, flat. How do you go from, it took a month of deliberation in the first trial to almost an instant conviction? Well, you don't allow a lot of the evidence from the first trial to be admissible. That's part of it. They were convicted of first-degree murder, 2 counts. And they were sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. So when they were allowed to plead their case thoroughly to the best of their ability, it was a hung jury. When they were not able to do that, they were instantly convicted. Now, let me be clear. I don't know the ins and outs of this case. I do not know. I didn't read the file. Maybe there's some smoking gun that, we don't know about that from behind closed doors. But just listening to these details and knowing what I know about the justice system and how shady it is, it just makes me like, I don't feel good about this. That's all I can say. I don't sit here and go, yes, good judgment. I'm happy those men are locked up. I feel icky about this. And that's all I can say on that. Another aspect of this documentary that really threw me for a motherfucking loop was the goddamn prosecuting attorney, Pam Bozinich. Okay? This woman was a piece of work, y'all. A piece of work. Okay? Let me pull up some clips because I just feel like you got to hear her in her own words, okay? In this clip, she's talking about the attorney for one of the brothers. This is her talking about the attorney for one of the brothers, okay? And this is her talking now in today, like in modern times, talking about them.
If I told you what I really thought of Leslie Abramson, I would be sued. Because she, I think, has lost all her money. And I'm not giving up my house.
What the fuck? Who says that? And I know she's trying to be like cheeky, you know what I mean? But like, really, girl? Really, girl? I'm not giving up. I heard she doesn't have any money. I'm not giving up my house. If you were just some random on the street talking nonsense, all good. You were an officer of the court with people's lives on the line in your hands, and this is how you talk? Here's another clip.
I had no reaction to the Menendez brothers. There was no visceral reaction. I didn't feel like I was in the presence of pure evil. They were like potted plants to me. They were like poisonous potted plants, but there was nothing about them that I found fascinating. They were just these dumb jock killers.
What? They were like potted plants to me. That's a really weird thing. I don't know, man. That's a weird ass thing to say about somebody. It's very dissociative. It's very objectifying. Like, she turned them into an object. They're not even people. They're just potted plants. And she called them dumb jocks. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but when you have people's lives in your hand, I just feel like speaking like that is crazy. And speaking like that in public is even crazier. I mean, they were just dumb jocks. Like, what? I just don't think that people who operate like this should have jobs with that level of responsibility. It just threw me for a loop. We are running out of time. We're going to have to finish this doc deep dive next episode, because there's more clips that I want to play about this lady, and I want to talk about her. And then let me see, what else did I want to talk about here? Yeah, I want to finish discussing this attorney, because she's a trip, and that's not even the worst of what she said. We'll finish this out next episode, y'all. With that being said, we have come to the end of another episode of No Niche Zone, the podcast about everything. You can follow us across all platforms at No Niche Zone Pod. You can also subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to our Discord, and you can follow me personally at Pris the Goddess across all platforms. And folks, we'll see you next time.